morning, everyone. Ooh, that was a little loud. I do want to go ahead and tell you this workshop is called Food Safety Investigation, Applying Food Safe Practices from Farm to Table. And the important thing about this curriculum is that it's a collaborative effort between Cornell University, University of Florida, UC Davis, and a bunch of agriculture teachers in each of those states. And presenting today are Danette Philpott from Florida and Jeff Perry from New York. And I want to give them all the credit because they were so very involved in this program and we wouldn't have been able to get it done without them. So I'm going to let Danette take over here and tell you a little bit about the curriculum and its design. Oh, sorry.
How you doing? And I have a hard time with the microphone, as I was told yesterday. But again, Betsy, thanks for the introduction. My name is Danette Philpott. I was an ag teacher in Florida for 9 years, and now I've been moved up to the county office, so we all know how that is. But what I want to go over with you real quick is just how the actual the layout of the curriculum that you have. So what you have is you have a bag, and in the bag, the GAPS label is basically a program that's put forth by Cornell University in growers ensuring farm safety, food safety from the farm to basically the plate or the fork. And you're going to be possibly winning some of those handout books that are actually how GAPS actually educates the farmer. What GAPS then did was take it down a step further, and then we brought the food safety principles to the ag classroom. And so what we're going to show you today is, one, you have your bag. You also have a cool CD which was playing when you came in, which is cool songs that Dr. Carl Winters from UC Davis put together and incorporating a lot of the fun little things that you can be having when you're playing when you go over this unit. Now we're going to get to the core of the program, and some of the things that we talked about as ag teachers, and Betsy not being an ag teacher, she learned a lot from us, is that how many binders do you have that sit on your desk? Okay, yes. We throw them at kids, we do whatever we want, we hold our papers down, all kinds of cool stuff. What we came up with was an idea that as you use this book, it's a teaching. It can be held in your hand, it stays up on your podium. If you need to make copies, you need to write in it. It's easy, it's not going to fall apart, because what happens? When you have the other binder, you take something out, you copy it, we lose the paper. So when we're looking at this, we're like, I told Betsy, I was like, we got to keep it together because I hate binders, but that was the reason why we went with the spiral. If you look in the front pocket here, we have a CD. Everything that is on the actual curriculum is in the CD. It's in PDF form as well as Word. So we didn't know, and we went both ways because some schools, you're allowed to use Adobe, and other schools it's illegal, and so we wanted you guys to have something that was totally usable. Totally usable. And so that's kind of what that curriculum is set up. There's actually two divisions, or we call two modules, if you'll flip in. This actually is a supplemental curriculum that can be actually interjected into any of your ag programs. Intro to Ag Science, Animal Science, Plant Science, Food Science. It can also be used with your health science teacher. It can also be used with your general science or your health occupations teacher, biology, because the principles of the foundation of what we're looking at food safety is basically we're all consumers. So everyone's like, agriculture's a dying breed. Well, okay, when agriculture dies, we die. So we need that, understanding the whole concept of how everybody's related to the farm, to food. And as you go through the units, and we're going to go through 2 units today. We're going to do 1-1, and then we're going to jump ahead a little bit and go into another little lesson that we both have worked on, and you can add to it. This can be either 2 weeks or you can stretch it out. It can be 6 to 8 weeks. That's up to you. The foundation's here for you guys to either pull things you like, because, again, something I told Betsy, I says, don't be surprised if people will pull what they want. Each one of you have a different passion. Each one of you have a different specialty. We add to it. We're going to subtract from it. But, again, the foundation's here. It flows well. it was, out of all the curriculums that I've ever been involved in, this is the most usable across the board. I can put it in any program. Ninth graders on up to my upper level animal sciences, the areas that I taught it in. So it's just really usable. It's friendly. As you keep going through, you'll see how the introduction is. The actual FSI, the Food Safety Investigation, was a spin-off of CSI. The kids understand the whole concept of investigating something. And as the way it tools out, you'll actually have an investigative maps if you want to keep turning. We laid out all the lessons in the beginning, just talking about the instructional objectives, things that you need to have, you know, for our wonderful principals and that type of thing. Sorry for you curriculum writers in here, because we all know how we sometimes teach. And then it goes right into the units itself. We have one section where you can look for one area for all the equipment and tools that you'll need. Today, some of you will be actually taking home some of these cool tools with you. So, and then we're right into 1-1, and then you have the actual paper, but then again, you have it on disc and you have it in your hand. So there's one curriculum. It's easy to use. It's not a huge binder. And I'm going to, I'm going to go into our first lesson today, and basically there's been an outbreak. There's been an outbreak that is in Indianapolis, and we think it's actually in this room, and it's of E. coli. Yes. So what we need you to do today is actually hold your hands out. We've got our two investigators who are going to walk around, and they're going to be looking for the E. coli germ. And as they go around, if anybody's noticed, if anybody actually has the germ on them, if they raise their hand. Oh, we have a germ. Oh. Yep. Yep, we got germs. It's just a speck. Yeah. Okay, how many germs do I have in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there was a germ over here somewhere, wasn't there? Or she's getting there. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you the secret. Yeah, it's this side. Okay. How many raise them up high if you have germs? Okay, here we go. What we did today is as we introduced, you go ahead and put your hands down. As we shook hands with you, we actually had glow germ on. So this is the introduction of 1-1. Okay, the cool glow germ, basically, when you do it with your kids, we did it on the floor yesterday, but the carpet eats it. So I'm just trying to, like, as a teacher, tell you what we learned. In my classroom, we used it on our hands, put it on the doorknob. Some of you may get the germ glow kits today, and in the lotion or in the powder form. And you can actually start off with the kids. They come in the door, and you're like, hey, there's been an outbreak, and kind of really beef it up. And then you can go around the room, oh, everybody's got germs and cooties and all that kind of good stuff. But what it does is it introduces that washing hands is the most effective way for preventing foodborne illness and preventing colds and preventing other things. So I'm going to let Betsy go into the cool bugs that we're going to talk about a little bit today.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? There you go. Okay, so this idea of contamination and the real basis for this whole curriculum is that microorganisms are everywhere, right? Some are good and some are bad. And the some are good and some are bad is really, really important to this curriculum, because we don't want kids walking away thinking that all microbes are bad. Okay, so that's been built into this. When we designed this curriculum, we used what they call a Delphi study. How many are familiar with a Delphi study? Okay, for those of you that are not familiar with a Delphi study, what it is where you take a group of experts, and in my case, I would say to them, we want to design a 2-week curriculum about food safety and food science. What do we need to have in there? So we send it out to microbiologists, food scientists, horticulturalists, veterinarians, and said, what should we put in there? And they combined a list and came up with what content should be in a curriculum. and in terms of microbiological safety of food and food safety in general. So the other thing is that pathogenic microorganisms can kill you. They can make you sick and they can kill you. And it's really important because things like the flu, you all work in schools, crowded areas. You want to reduce the spread of things like that. Learning how microbes move around is really important. And we know they can spread in different ways. This morning, most of you were contaminated by this guy right here. Okay? So one guy, raise your hands again if you had stuff on your hands. One guy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's got to be a good third of the people in here. Third of the people became contaminated by one guy. Okay? So it's important from that perspective. And I'm very excited about the curriculum because it has such real-life applications. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. I'm going to give it back to Danette. She's going to run you through 1-1 real quick and show you some of the stuff about how to interact with the kids. The other thing I wanted to point out, the PowerPoints that you're going to see right now, every lesson, in addition to being laid out in Word and PDF, comes with an accompanying PowerPoint. You don't have to use it in your class. You could use it as handouts, but you do have that asset there to help you through some of the concepts.
Okay, we're going to go back through, and when you go through the PowerPoints, you can actually modify them to whatever's in your growing area. Again, the 3 states that were focused on this was California, Florida, and New York. Those are the 3 biggest states for fresh food markets when we look at fresh fruits and vegetables and that type of thing. So that's why those 3 states and the 9 teachers were targeted for this program. In your area, you may have a specific thing that you can actually tap into, add. You can actually go to a packing house and kind of see some different things that are going on. If you'll go ahead and turn to sorry, should have had this labeled. If you'll go ahead and turn to page 6, what we just did the introduction for 1-1 with the glow germs on the hands. If you have an upper level kid, they can be the contaminator, and you can do all sorts of cool things with this. And basically, as we continue on, you'll also have all your reference material you can tap into. Again, Jeff and I went ahead and put our email address up here. If you want to write that down and you feel like, hey, I got stuck somewhere, you can talk to us. You can email us, say, hey, where can I go with this, or have a question. Jeff is much better in the food science arena. I'm more of an animal science person, so I'm going to plug on Jeff for me. But yeah, Jeff is truly in his state is an excellent on food science. He does a lot of the contests. He can tap into it. He's a great resource. I'm a little bit more on the animal science side. So if you want some animal science things that I did, you can, I'm not saying either one of us, but I'm just showing us our specialties. We're going to go ahead and turn to the actual 1-1 lesson. And right here is basically page 7. You can do this in 2 forms. You can either, you can run it off as copies. I don't know how you guys are as far as your copy Nazi. Some people, some school districts, they count like every little copy. What I did with this is I actually wrote it on the board, had the kids design it on some colored paper, and actually made it into part of their notebook. So you can do it in several different ways. We just have the layout for you. The choice is yours. You want to make copies, great. If you want to do it as a board project, even better. I don't know, some of you have ever had those folding type of workshops where you can learn vocabulary and stuff like that. Perfect for this. Again, it's just tying into some different strategies. And as well on the back. Bacteria, virus, parasites. I did all this was off the board.
And if you look at the screen up here, we have the actual PowerPoint that goes with the worksheet that she's looking at on 1-1. There's a whole PowerPoint that builds the knowledge that allows them to do this. So this PowerPoint talks about the hazards involved in food. What are the 3 types of hazards involved in food? They're physical, biological, and chemical. Can you guys give me an example of a physical hazard in hamburger, for instance? Piece of glass. Excellent. Another good one for hamburger is metal because of the grinding blades. What about a chemical contaminant? Cleaning solutions. I use the lemonade Mr. Clean example. They kind of look alike and in some cases smell alike. And then a biological hazard would be E. coli and spinach, exactly. And so these PowerPoints, as Danette was showing you, go along with those things. And there's examples and pictures of all of these things to help you convey this information. And then moving along, I think you got all the way to pathogens, bacteria, viruses, parasites, and it describes all of these things.
And also when I did some of this, we used microscopes, and we actually had the kids draw it out. Again, you can really stretch this out, or you can just talk about it. It's truly up to you. I know some of you are under the gun as far as what you need to get covered in a class and that type of thing. In my school, I actually had science teachers come up to me, and they're like, we want you to teach this, because they felt that we were more comfortable about talking about pathogens, bacteria. Remember, guys, we are the true science. I mean, all sciences come out of agriculture. That's what I tell the kids. And so if we can tap in and to make you guys even be the star of your school, again, this program is what really we're after, is just to really go after the true science of what's behind food science, food safety. As we continue on, we've got a case file checklist that's going to be coming up right here. You're building your case. Again, so the kids really got into this as far as they're like, what are we investigating today, and so on and so forth. And as you go along, you're building a foundation that you should be able to solve things as we continue on.
Can we tag team?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. I want to just tag team on that, because we had a lot of discussions over the case file concept. When I taught it, I actually had the kids over the period of the 5 weeks set up files for each one of the organisms. So it ended up being, at the end, they turned the entire case file in. We tried to play it more along the CSI lines, where each day they were given another part of their case file that they then completed and submitted into the file. Some of us, when we piloted, didn't like that format, but we didn't want to lose that as a possibility. You don't have to do it that way, but for some of us it worked really well in terms of doing the entire unit, and they have a thick packet of information, basically like a legal document, that they could go back through and refer to. So it's something that's optional, but some of us had a lot of fun with it, and some of us it didn't fit into our curriculum as well.
Again, the creativity, as Jeff was tapping into, goes back to you. We've given you the foundation. You guys don't have to really investigate anymore, but if you get really excited into it, you want to spend 9 weeks or whatever, you can stretch it out, you can make little files. There's always, what do you do with all those spare files that you get you don't know what to do with? Perfect. Kid can decorate it. They can use 50 minutes to decorate their file, when you need to grade papers to get your grades done, or, get ready to go somewhere. Because I remember how it was, I got to be gone for a week. It's 2 weeks of work. And one day you got to figure out, one, you got to get your desk cleaned off, which is there's no ag teacher that has a clean desk, and if you do, there's an issue. But got to get your desk cleaned off. You got to get your lesson plans done. If you've got animals at the land lab, you got to organize all that. So we went to the route that we wanted you guys to have something to use. Continuing on, the FDA statement. These were actual true statements. Now, how I did this, and this is just the foundation. What I did is you can actually go to the FDA website and get today's whatever outbreak is going on. Now, instead of the student, sorry if we'll turn, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. Instead of the student finding a different article, what I did, because I came from a low-performing school, so I had to do reading strategies. So all my reading strategies came off the FDA website. Using my curriculum here, and then my reading strategies, every student had the same article. You can do whatever you want. You want to go into the computer lab, each student pulls off something different. Right here you have a little worksheet. What happened, who did this happen to, where did it occur, when did this occur, so on and so forth. When we were piloting this program, last September is actually when we had the huge spinach outbreak in California. Now, when you look at different water quality issues, which we just kind of went over, we wanted to talk about the different regions. Florida, we get 55 inches of rain a year, so we're pretty much the swampland. And also, most of our crops are irrigated from a deep well. So our water issues are a little different than a water issue in California. All the water sits on top of the soil. Okay, everything is basically flood irrigated or held in reservoirs. So if you have water that's sitting on top of the soil, you're going to have a larger portion contamination, whether it's with the pig that jumped across the fence and, you know, cows up the stream or so on and so forth. New York, they have a deep well system on parts of their, but where Tara is basically her area is the water that feeds New York City. So your water issues are different in your area. Tap into that. Tap into that. And continuing on, this is the outbreak. It was a real outbreak. Paperwork, again, you can do one or two things. You can either use this, you can go into the CD, or you can put it up on the board, whatever you'd like. And then actually the assignment, how the points were assessed. If you want to use this rubric, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Again, whatever you do in your classrooms for you, we just wanted to give you some tools to pull from. And then that's it for 1-1. Does anybody have any questions? I kind of went through it kind of quickly. Does everybody understand the layout of what we were trying to accomplish in this curriculum? All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. He's going to go over... Oh, sorry. Betsy.
I keep jumping in here. Thanks, Danette. 1-1 is a really good way to get you introduced to the idea that we're talking about, basic food safety concepts. I want to talk just for a few minutes. There's really like 3 slides about the curriculum design and development. And the original idea for this, the very original idea, is that I go out and I work with farmers. That's my job. I'm an extension educator. And I help them implement good agricultural practices to reduce microbial risks. Many of my growers are older, and when I show up, they say, "What are you doing here?" Food safety, that's just not a part. I grow a crop. Food safety is not part of what I do. But the reality is, it is. With the spinach outbreak, with the hepatitis A and green onions, all these outbreaks have put a lot of pressure on them. A lot of buyers insist they have a food safety program or they're not going to buy their crops. Okay, so what does this have to do with ag teachers? What this has to do with ag teachers is you're teaching my future growers. And I got sick of them not knowing, and I thought, how do I fix this problem? And the way I fix it is to get them before they become farmers. Okay, get them when they're young. And so I decided to work with ag educators. But what I quickly learned from interacting with these folks is that about 2% of students go into production agriculture out of your classrooms. 2%, that's not very much. So we didn't want to leave out that other 98. So what you'll notice about the curriculum is it does have an emphasis on production in Module 2. But Module 1 is really applicable to all people. What is one job that almost all 15-year-olds have done at one time or another? Fast food. These people are handling the food you eat at lunch. So having them understand food safety concepts is really critical to them getting a job as well as them executing the job properly. The other thing is the curriculum content. I told you about the Delphi study and how we did that. But I want to assure you, as people teaching students who are actually going to try and get a job, that this is directly applicable to industry right now. Okay? People call me almost weekly looking for people to hire. And there aren't enough people trained in food safety. So it's an area that is an area where people can go out and get jobs. The other thing is it's real life situations. We're going to go through, Jeff is going to run you through Lesson 2.3. And Lesson 2.3 is actually a modified version, shortened, of what I actually do with farmers on the farm right now. So it's real life. It's what we actually do out in the field. The other thing is getting back to this ag educators. Ag educators have all these different specialties. And you're going to notice in a slide coming up that we've modified things to fit people like animal science. I don't do animals, except what comes out their backside. That I do because we use it as a soil amendment. But the issue is, Danette was like, wait a second here, what about the animal science people? You have to have something for us. So we've made those modifications based on teacher input. Again, this is funded by USDA from the National Integrated Food Safety Initiative. I want to give them credit because this is a big project that we've spent a lot of time and money on. Our 3 collaborating states, New York, California, and Florida. And of course the teachers. These are all the teachers that were involved in the states, and I really do want to give them credit because this has been going on for about 3 years, and they've taken, 3 trips across the nation we've dragged you guys around, so they've done a lot. The abridged booklet Danette talked to you about, but I do want to highlight, it is abridged. This thing is not everything because the teachers told us, give us the handouts, give us this, give us that, don't give us anything else because it'll get too big. But everything is on that CD. The modules. I want to kind of go over this a little bit. Module 1 is really about building the baseline knowledge that they're going to need to really apply in Module 2. Okay, that's why 1.1 is so exciting to me because that concept of the hazards involved in food is something that they teach at the college level. You take 396 at Cornell, and I guarantee you they are going to go over the hazards in food production. Okay, so it's really building a knowledge base for the students to work off of and apply. That's the really important thing. In each of these labs, there's hands-on activities, and we're going to give away stuff. We're giving away slide sets. We're giving away glow germ because we want to be able to have you take this directly into the classroom.
I should back up a slide, actually.
You want to back up a slide?
Yep.
Okay.
To piggyback on that, we actually tore apart we sat down on our last revision. Most of those modules have 2 or 3 options available. One of them was a salsa lab where we made salsa and worked through the process of just looking, okay, we're taking a fresh product, creating a value-added product, but at the same time, it was a lengthy lab. Some of us, we don't have time for that. So we left that in, came up with a couple alternatives that are listed in there as well, so you can choose which one fits your program the best. As we get ready to switch to lesson 2-3, I like module 2 and had a lot of fun with it because it is the farmer-based. I teach a food science course. This fresh produce content was missing from all the curriculums that I've merged together into my program. The avenues of contamination and the tracebacks start to get you interested. Right. Yep. Increase volume. Now we move the mic closer. Let me try moving the mic. Is that better or worse? Is that better? All right. Teacher voice may blow you away, and I don't want to be that bad either. So the first 2. I've tried the traceback before. We actually ran this in New York. I ran 2-2, which is an actual traceback process that takes an outbreak all the way back through the steps to the original grower. It's a really great lab, but it takes a little bit to work through, and we don't have time for that. But it was exciting. I just want to let you know it was a lot of fun to work through, and the kids got excited about it because they start to see much more of a CSI concept. Because all of a sudden you're trying to find, well, wait a minute, this went all the way back to this farm when we started with a consumer. The one we're going to do is 2-3. Food safety begins on a farm. What we've done, what you've got on each table are 2 sets of resources. What we traditionally do, and I don't think we're going to do that in this format unless you want to try it in a smaller group. Okay, each one has. Yep. What I do in my classroom is there are a whole set of these, and I'm not sure if this is going to come up. Oh, I'll get to that in a minute. There are clean water. Ooh, have you got the resource packet, the thick resource packet? That one? That's the live one? Oh, can I borrow that? I'm going to see if I can reattach this and not tear it off. I'll also point that out. This is the grower version that we've distilled down to student version. This is what the growers actually work with, and in here is basically exactly the format that you're working with in the grower packet. There are 5 of these in the cycle of analysis on a farm. So what we try to explain in the process is that you're going to walk onto a farm and do an analysis of the quality standards on the farm. There's 5 areas of that. 4? 4. And it's clean hands, surfaces, water, and soil. Okay, I'll get there once I get rolling. And there's a rubric that says what level the standards are and a blank sheet. We've actually given you, right on page, lesson 2-3, page 7, is the actual transcript of a grower. So, an investigator has gone out ahead of you and interviewed the grower. That's the transcript of what the grower has said. You as students are now going to work through that transcript and try to identify, like this, our front group has clean water. They're going to read through what the assessment process is and say, okay, we've got 4 choices. It's a best practice. That farmer is doing exactly what they need to be doing to maintain food quality. We've got minor adjustments needed. They need to improve it just a little bit. Concerns exist. They need to make a little more progress, or they really haven't touched it. As an example, irrigation water. Right? In the transcript, the question will be asked something relating to irrigation water. But it's a live transcript. There are some that are really, really vague. And the students start asking questions, well, what am I supposed to do on this? Because it doesn't specifically say that he's got irrigation water from a surface water source of known microbial quality. If it doesn't specifically say that, the students struggle a little bit to say, wait a minute, I've got to think through and interpret this. They're so used to getting things kind of fed verbatim in some of the other classes that can be a challenge. What I'd like you to try to do is we're going to take a couple minutes and work through the transcripts in your table and see if you can fill out. The way you fill this out, there are the first 4 columns. All you need to do is basically put an X. Is it a best practice level, a minor adjustment level, a concerns exist level, or a prioritized level needs help for just your water area? And then you're going to try to sit down as a group and say, what do they need to improve? What's the next step where you can say, okay, wait a minute. If they are not testing their water in the irrigation pond, we better make sure they do that so we aren't spreading a bacteria through their irrigation lines onto the field. Right? So the first thing really is to take a minute and skim through the transcript, and you'll start to see the different pieces that are in there. And I also probably should back up and say this is the way I usually do this to my students. I'll throw something at them and say, okay, you need to read the transcript and start trying to fill that out. And then that'll start stimulating questions. And if I have to, I'll stop and backtrack as a whole class. But typically, 3/4 of the class are going to jump right on it and understand it. And then the ones that really need some assistance, we can fine-tune. So I'd like you to look through the transcript and see if that makes a cognitive leap where you can grasp that. And if not, then I need to clarify it and back it out to a step-by-step process. Okay, but that's the way I also handle it with my students. So take a minute to read through that. All these I've got 2 different definitions up here because of my own lack of knowledge. I was doing this as a class with my students. It's like, what in the heck is an SOP? SOP is a standard operating procedure, which you'll note in this thicker book. We were using this as a reference, and myself included, I don't know what an SOP is. That's why that's in the PowerPoint. Same with SSOPs. Like, okay, that didn't help me any. Sanitation Standard Operating Procedure was also related to HACCP, and it made more sense to me once Betsy explained it to me, but I was totally at a loss when I was working with the kids. That's why that's also in the PowerPoint. Right? But here's the transcript itself. I'd like you to take a couple minutes in your tables to read through the transcript and actually start to try to identify at least the X's. Are they best practice or do they really need help? And take a couple minutes to do it. We as teachers are probably really poor students because we hate to take the time to do that. But we don't need to take a lot of time, but I want you to work through to see if that makes sense as you can take the transcript and put it onto your rubric because the kids are going to have the same challenge. Okay? Questions? Take a shot at it. I'm going to just circulate through to see if there's... Got a question, what's a flume tank? And we ran into that. Good question. There's a couple of those that pop through where a flume tank, actually I should have Betsy clarify that, but my understanding is it's part of the processing where they're going to run the vegetables down through a flume tank as a first wash, but sometimes they don't change the water out regularly. Betsy, is that correct? Flume tank?
Flume tank. Yeah, sorry. Okay, a flume tank is... Hello? There you go. A flume tank is where they use it usually to move things in a packing house. If you've got a product that'll get damaged, they'll float it out of the container, apples for instance, float it out and then they flume it throughout the packing house. And for instance, if for the clean water question, let's say you have a really gross apple that's got some sort of contamination, even if it's not human pathogens but like fungus, and it gets dumped in that water tank and it shakes off right as it moves. If you don't put a disinfectant in your flume water, that contamination is going to shake off and stick to clean apples. You're going to end up with post-harvest problems, and you're going to end up with human pathogen problems if you have it. So the flume tanks have usually a recircling kind of water system, and depending on the packing house, it'll get changed daily, weekly, whatever. But we're talking about disinfectants and flume tanks. Does that make sense? The question? Okay.
And probably the other thing that wasn't mentioned is there is a GAPS website, which is having. Okay. So there's going to be supporting material where if you run into those type of technical questions, you can email and either Betsy or Karen will find that answer for you relatively quickly as well. You can go ahead and write out. Well, we can talk about that a little bit more because it depends on how far you want to go in the process. For really introductory level, if you can convince them to, or understand the process of identifying the level of experience, is it best practice or poor, that may be all you need. For my freshmen, if I can get them to understand that, I was doing good. For my food science class, I'm going to push them out. We don't have a lot of cost material. That would be extra research. But you could have them, as they find a solution, start making rough content. For a water conservation, start to get, what would it cost to put in a containment system? You know, you can have them do extended research. Typically, we don't fill out the end, just the action for improvement. Now, so if you have a suggestion for that, if you find one that's not best practice, see if you can come up with what that would be. Good question. Where it wasn't identified in the transcript?
Nothing known about it. I don't use it very much. I don't even think about it. So to me, that's right.
Exactly, because it's lack of information. He might need to know a little bit more to answer that question properly. And the kids struggle with that. It's like, well, they don't say anything about that. Well, what's that tell you about his knowledge about that level? We may need to think about it. Exactly. Yes, question? Yes. Could, but maybe not to the level it is. And yeah. Yep. So it's going to be probably a minor adjustment. And there's more information. Again, if you get excited about this product material, the GAPS program for the growers. Our first visit was in Florida. You took 9 ag teachers and threw us into an area way out of our field because we were with international people. We had one gentleman from France that bought strawberries to make into puree. And he was at that meeting. We had an apricot grower present some data on apricot. We were way out of our league. But we started to learn that there's a whole different field where the toilet issue is a big deal on where you hire workers to go into the fields. You've got to have those facilities available. They really are supposed to be specifically monitored. He's doing a moderate job, but he's not quite doing it to the level he should be. And you can get in. There's actually a DVD. I don't know if we have that one here. There's a DVD that I use that's a training video for the workers or for the employees. Yeah, the 9th graders get a bit of a chuckle. There's nothing. It's G-rated, but at the same time, it shows washing hands, using the toilet properly, wiping your bum and putting the material in the proper disposal and not in your pockets. Because that's when you start using migrant labor, that's what they do. And you're trying to train migrant labor. So I've used that. I've got a DVD. I think that's in the packet. There's a DVD worksheet on that. I don't know. It takes a second.
Yeah, I know. The thing about toilet use is that a lot of our workers come from other countries. And when you're from a different country where the plumbing is not as sufficient as it is here in the U.S., you would be not very smart to put toilet paper in the toilet because the plumbing can't take it, right? So what I do is when I go on the farm with farmers, I'll say, do you guys have the toilet paper problem? And if they have it, they know because they have piles of used toilet paper in the corner. Okay, so this sounds really gross and nasty, and in fact it is, but if you were a worker coming here to get a job, would you want to clog your boss's toilet? And the answer is no. Only an idiot would put toilet paper in the toilet, right? So the issue is you have to tell people, no, American toilets can handle it. Portalettes can handle it. You can put the toilet in the So we actually have this video that Jeff is talking about. It's kind of humorous because a guy actually walks into a bathroom, drops his pants, has a seat, does his business, wipes his bum, drops the toilet paper in the toilet, pulls his pants up, and washes his hands. And it sounds rather graphic, and it is, in some ways, because you have to tell people exactly what you expect of them. The other thing is we have illiteracy problems with a lot of our workers, and the issue is I can put a sign on the wall that says, put toilet paper in the toilet. What good does that do you if you can't read? Okay, so if you want to convey a message, you have to convey a message in a way, as you well know as teachers, that sinks into the audience that you're trying to convey the information to. So again, I think what Jeff's getting at is these are real life things that go on, and he uses them in the classroom to sort of show the students actually how to use, what's the dynamic we're talking about here. And it also teaches in a little way something you're not expecting, which is cultural literacy. So, yeah. Let's go.
That's
I
where
got
we're
my
going.
thing.
So then what we're going to do is I'm actually going to pick each one, and if we start right here with water, okay? Were they all best practice?
No.
No, we had. Oh, good. Aha. Dana with a mic. Go ahead.
No, they weren't.
So what'd you find in terms of areas of improvement?
He needs to monitor his pH, and he doesn't monitor his water temperature with his tomatoes.
Was it clearly stated in the transcript that that was definitely a problem, or did you have to do some interpretation?
For the most part, it was.
Fairly clear. And some areas you'll find are excellent, and some they have. We were talking over there. We're going to find there's some lack of material. How about surfaces? Go ahead and clean surfaces worksheet. Just say surface on it. We may have 2 sets. I probably should do that. Anybody else have clean water?
We had some minor adjustments, concerns, and prioritized changes.
So you had no best practices, and that area was surfaces.
Surfaces.
Okay. So that area as a whole is a little lax in that grower. Does that mean he's not doing his job? No, but he needs to continue to fine tune that area of his operation.
The worst area was washing and sanitation of harvest aids.
So why is that important?
They were using the knife to cut the cabbage heads off, and I guess they were supposed to do it after each head of cabbage, but they didn't do it maybe daily.
Yeah. Okay, so this brings out an interesting point. How many times does it take, how many heads of cabbage do you have to cut before your knife's dirty? 1, right? So, but how realistic is it to cut? Have you guys ever seen people cutting cabbage, first off? Okay, they cut cabbage real fast. You kind of wouldn't see it unless you were in their face. So the issue is, sanitizing your knife after every cut, that's a little insane. But let's say you do have a contaminated knife and you wash it at breaks or every half a day. If there is any contamination, you're going to cut it off at that point. And if you're talking about a recall, you're then going to only have to recall a certain percentage of your crop as opposed to the whole thing. So does this kind of make sense? Good agricultural practices is not about accepting zero risk, because there's no way to do zero risk when we grow things outside in the soil with water that we get out of streams. But the issue is reducing risk wherever we can. And it's that same concept in all food safety concepts. Does that make sense? Yeah.
One thing throughout this, he seemed to not make a differentiation between dirty and contaminated. Even with the trucks, the knives, everything. Well, it's dirty already, and it's going to get dirty again, so why wash it? It's not the dirt you're concerned about, it's the contamination.
That's true, but how do they know if it's microbial contaminated? They're not going to swab. They're not going to culture. So dirt, visible dirt, is often a really good indication that you might have some risk. So the truck one, on this surfaces one, we actually had an outbreak because a truck showed up to a farm. It had carried animal carcasses and then came to a produce farm, and then they filled it with fresh produce. They actually had an outbreak from that. So if you open up the truck and it smells like dead chicken, I want something done. Now, we may not have swabbed to tell that it's got salmonella, but I want the chicken out. So I agree with you, but it's that, right, you got to do kind of that both and explain. And the thing is this isn't fair to you because you're now 2/3 of the way through the curriculum making you do this. By the time you get here with your students, we've covered a lot of the conceptual stuff in the front end. But that's a great point. Okay, next one.
Switch to, so we've got water done, we've got surfaces. How about soil?
Soil? Anybody got soil?
Anybody have soils?
What are we determining? Composting conditions for manure and bedding.
Okay.
That no records were kept. No, nothing.
Okay, so, okay. So their problem was composting conditions and manure handling and bedding. Why is that a problem? Is manure good or bad? Great. Great? Can it be bad? Yeah. Okay, we know that ruminants carry and shed E. coli 157H7. We want, if you're going to be using that manure, we want it applied either way in advance or we want some composting done. And I'll tell you, in terms of the reason we have all this record-keeping issue is that when you have an audit of your farm, if you don't have records, we like to say, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. I don't care if you did it every day. If there's no record of it when an auditor comes on, you're going to fail that audit. And so that's what we're trying to get at with a lot of these, is helping the growers move in that right direction. And because a lot of farming is gray, we have like categories. Like, this isn't so bad, but I like to call the prioritized changes here the God help you line. You know, like if you're over here, God help you, because you're just not going to survive an audit, okay?
And I'm glad you mentioned the farm audits. There's a lot of, the other unfortunate thing is we've been involved for 3 years, and Betsy's not walking around your classroom when you're presenting this, so she's filling you in on details, and yet you don't have that opportunity necessarily when you're in your classroom. The GAPS website, which Betsy will talk about in a minute, is a good resource for that. There is a lot of information. If you really get interested in this and get a hold of Betsy, there are other resources available. This is the actual guide. Farm audits, I don't know, everywhere you go, either Publix, out our way it's Wegmans, you've got a large grocer, they are starting to require audits, documented audits of your farm and the processing that goes through. They won't accept your produce if you don't have these audits done. And it's really starting to take the farmers to a new level simply because they can't sell their produce without it. We didn't understand that until we got into this process, and GAPS by itself begins to introduce us to that world as teachers. That's what I got excited about, because it's the whole realm of fresh material that we don't cover quite as well, nor did I have any experience in prior to this, even through all my college background. Right? Go ahead.
We did the clean hands portion of it. We felt that for a lot of it, they were minor adjustments needed. In fact, we thought probably the worst area probably would have been the sickness. The fact that
somebody got sick, and
that if they got sick, they just sent them home, and that was only if it was visibly sick. I mean,
yeah, the worker illness and reporting is a real funky one, because do farm workers get days off? No. So if you're a farm worker, you're there to work. You're not there to go home sick. So there has to be a lot of training. That's a very tough one that our growers struggle with. It's one of the hardest ones they have to come up with. But a lot of growers, I just talked to a buddy of mine right before coming here, and he said this one grower that I know, he said, yeah, did you know if he catches the guys peeing in the field, they have to go home for a full day? And this gets more to hands. If he catches his guys peeing outside the outhouse and not washing their hands, he sends them home for a full day. He doesn't want to see them. And that's a huge deal. But there's ways to get stuff done by motivating people to do the right thing. Okay? And the other thing I want to say is, again, there's a fruit and vegetable slant to this. But Danette can tell you things can be used in animal science classes. Clean hands is applicable everywhere. Clean surfaces, any packing house, you're going to deal with sanitation issues. So the issue is some of this stuff looks more fruit and vegetable, but is really applicable to other things.
Our last one is manure, I believe.
Manure.
Right?
And we did manure.
You do manure?
Composting.
Good.
We're done.
Okay. And then what I typically do in a classroom activity, I'll have at least 2 or 3 groups. We then put all that data up on the board and compare our notes. Did all 3 groups come up with the same assessment or same results given the same transcript? Because oftentimes they'll have slight differences of opinion, and a couple of those were brought up where it's like, is it a best practice or a minor adjustment, or does it really need a lot of work? And then the next step in the process
Sorry, Jeff.
is...
What do you want to do? I moved through.
No, back. Oh, okay. I wanted to get to the lesson. At the very end, they actually...
There.
That's it, yeah. There is an assessment lesson where they have to write a summary. Okay, you've done assessment of this farm. Now write a letter back to the grower identifying the highlights. What are the main points that they need to be working on their next assessment? It reinforces their language skills. They have to do a business letter, but they also have to summarize all the material they just spent time working on, such that in a 1 or 2 page letter, it's a bulleted list, for lack of a better term. So how do they want to describe or organize that letter so the farmer understands it when you send it to them? And that's really what happens at the end of an audit, is they get a report back. And so we ask them to do that as a final step in that process. And again, what we've done is introduced you to the very front of this lesson, or the module, and then at the end of the curriculum, we've run through this last one. And it's a shotgun approach that's extremely rapid fire, but to try to get you introduced. The assessment piece, I think, it culminates all those pieces. There's another one in lesson 1 where you get on and look at bad bugs. And all of a sudden they start understanding E. coli and hepatitis and all those types of material, and realize that that might show up in their assessments. It's like, okay, wait a minute. This is why we do this type of check. Okay. Questions? I always feel like we go way too fast on these type workshops.
Okay.
But the idea is to get you up and running.
Right. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the website Jeff was telling you about. And I definitely want to stress, if you have any questions and you need to contact me, Jeff and Danette gave you their emails. On your booklet, there's a website, www.gaps.cornell.edu. You can find me on that website. I can give you my email if you want it now. Do you want me to tell you what it is, or you just want to look for it? Okay, you guys can look for it. The important thing is we have a national program, the National Good Agricultural Practices website. And within that site now, because of the curriculum, we've developed sort of a teacher portion of that website that goes with this curriculum. Here's the exact website, but if you go to the homepage, you can go right in there, and it will say curriculum, it will say teachers, and you can head in there. And there's a lot of different information. If I find, for instance, I found a place where you can get glow germ kits for $15, which is about $50 below market price. So I listed it there. And it's different stuff that we put in there for resources for you. We're probably going to put a portion of the site that will allow you to give feedback. You know, give ideas, share ideas, have a more conversational area on the website. The one thing I want to stress here is we're going to start to do a pre- and post-test study of the curriculum. So we're going to have a standard set of questions, which the teachers are in the middle of reviewing right now to make sure they're happy with them in the classroom. And then you can participate in this study. Give your students the pre-test, teach the curriculum, give them the post-test. If you want to participate in that, I just handed out some evaluation forms. Mark that on there, and we'll get in touch with you about how to participate in that. We would love to have participants. If you don't want to sign up now because you don't want to sign yourself up because you're not sure if you're going to like the curriculum, you don't have to. You can contact us later. But the issue is I want to bring it up, and I want to let you know that it's a possibility. I handed out some bright orange evaluation forms. We certainly would love to have your opinion about what you thought of this workshop. What we're going to do now, I think Danette's going to go ahead and do a little bit of a summary for you guys, and then we are going to give away lots of stuff. So then we're just going to start reading off names and handing you stuff. So if you just hang out, we'll collect the orange sheets and then we're done. Okay, so I really appreciate you guys taking time. I know FFA convention is a crazy time, and I can't tell you how thankful I am that you took an hour to come and share it with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Okay. Actually, what Jeff is handing you out right now is some more of the reference materials. Obviously, you got the curriculum today, which was $40 in value. You also got a CD, which was a $10 value, and you're going to be getting some other stuff today. So if you have any friends that are interested in what you've gotten, you can easily give this to them. And basically, there's some, on the back, if you'll look, you'll see some food safety begins at the farm. Jeff, if you'll pass out, everybody's going to go ahead and get a magnet today. So lots of cool stuff. Basically, the bottom line is, and I think I iterated this morning, is that I've been on several curriculum writing committees. And the one curriculum that I think that can be implemented into any agricultural class, 8th through 12th grade, is this one right here. And again, I'm going to reiterate, you can work with your science teacher, you can work with your biology teacher, your health occupations. All of this is pertaining to what's in the news today. So one, it's relevant. Two, it's who better to teach this than us. And three, hopefully we really worked hard on having something that's usable. And I think after hopefully looking at it today that you can see that, wow, this is something that I can use. This is easy to use. It's flowable. It works, and it does quite well. Again, if you have any questions as far as from a teacher aspect, Betsy is obviously the guru about GAP's program. But if you have questions on where do I can implement this into my program, or you get stuck on a particular question, you can contact myself, Danette Philpott, or you can contact Jeff. We left our email up there, and we are dedicated to this program. We're dedicated to this curriculum, and I think I've enjoyed being on it, learned a lot. So I'm going to pass it back over to Betsy to give you guys all your cool stuff that you really waited for. And I appreciate you all coming today. I know it's a very busy time for all of us, but again, if you have any questions, we're more than welcome to stay afterwards and answer as many as we can.
The other thing I do want to add is she was saying I'm the guru on GAPS. I merely coordinate the program, okay? It's a national program. Ooh, that's really important. Yeah. Anybody else have a pink slip before I start raffling stuff off? I coordinate the national program, but I will tell you that we have collaborators in 25 out of the 50 states. So if you go to our website and you're interested in finding out about who's working on good ag practices in your state, you can find the person there. They're in University Extension, maybe close to you, and you may be able to do some cool projects with them as well. But I definitely want to stress it's a national project, and it's not just me. There's lots of very good people out of our program. There's Dr. Vani and Karen Rosberg, and then there's lots of people on a national scene in 25 states. Okay, without further ado,